Welcome to the launch episode of Cosmic Gate. I am your host, Seph Dietlin, and today I have a very special guest host, Tyler, from the Journey to Truth podcast. Say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, great, thank you. And our guest today is Arcturus Raw. The theme of today's show is about creating physical well-being, and that's what tonight's discussion is going to be. So for those of you who are watching us on the live stream, welcome. We have a studio audience. We're broadcasting here from Odyssey in Sedona. And in a way, the studio audience is going to be a wonderful way to ask the questions that you're going to be asking at home as we continue a discussion about physical well-being. There's so many different ways that we're being hit, I guess you could say. In terms of our well-being, creating fear, stress, and things like that. Arcturus Raw has invented technology that serves as kind of like medbed technology, even though we have to be careful with those words, right? But he has been able to create technology that advances how we can create well-being, and we're here to activate well-being, as well as have a wonderful discussion about how we can create it, how we can work with or work around some of the obstacles that we're facing in today's world, such as EMF radiation and a lot of other things that we're very well aware of that affect us. And we're all conscious beings here, and we're here to create balance on every level, emotional, spiritual, and physical. And so today's episode is going to focus on creating balance on all of those levels. And for those of you in the audience, you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions here and create a wonderful discussion. Thank you for joining us on the show. Appreciate it. Tyler, thanks very much.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
And this is a wonderful opportunity to plug your podcast. So tell the audience where they can find your podcast for those who don't know you already.
So yeah, in February of 2019, my co-host and I, hello, can you guys hear? Is this on? It's not, they don't hear the mic? It's on. Okay, I'll just use this. So in February of 2019, my co-host Aaron Kuhn and I started a podcast, Journey to Truth, and I never would have imagined I'd be here today, but we've been disclosing anything and everything that they don't want us to know for over 5 years now, and it's turned into so much more. We do conferences now, webinars, documentaries. We're working on a new documentary and working these events. It's amazing. I've met so many people, and I'm grateful. Tony, he was in here. Thank you for allowing me to be here. He's not here, but yeah, so you can find our podcast on our website, journeytotruth.online. You can watch the video podcast on Rumble. Anywhere you can listen to audio podcasts, that's where you can find us. But we appreciate the support. We've been suppressed and censored on all levels, from all platforms and deplatformed. And they just don't want us talking about this stuff sometimes. And, we're not going to stop. Sometimes it feels like we're screaming into the wind, but that's just what we have to do sometimes. And, the right people will hear and they'll come to these events. And I'm just grateful to be able to be a part of this tonight. So, and, this guy has amazing information. I can't wait to ask you some questions and pick your brain. But, yeah, thank you guys for being here. And I'll give the mic back to you so you can kick this off.
Yeah, thank you. And so, Ra, appreciate you being here. I would like to explore a little bit of how you got to where you are now and discovered what you do. We had a chance to sit down and chat a few days ago, and I find that your life experience is very relatable for many of us, because one of the things that you shared with me is that you felt like a misfit a little bit because of what you were aware of, or even if you weren't aware that you were aware of it, you were aware of something. And most people in this audience, whether in here, in person, or watching the live stream, can relate to feeling like we got dropped off in a planet that we don't belong, or a reality where we don't belong. But then at the same time, knowing that we're here to serve. So if you can just spend a few minutes sharing with the audience a little bit about how you got here.
I mean, this is multiphrenic, if I explain that in a sense. So I realized at some point that I am a pod being. And I've met many that had those experiences, that I one day woke up in a pod as an extraterrestrial on another ship. So that was 50,000 years in the future. And I was told that I'm projecting myself from a recall ship, from that body, with a fraction of my consciousness to be on this planet. So it's so when I transition or ascend or whatever, it's not like the light and seeing the ancestors. Is basically waking up on a recall ship and having then review the memory, and that's how some of us starseeds work. That we are projected backwards in time to help assist planet in an ascension process, but it's all cryptic and coded for the dysfunctionality we are born in. So Earth is a dysfunctional planet, and we have to make it functional again. So it's like cryptic messages throughout my life that were left that forced me to think that there's something not right. And that was before I even knew what deep state was. Is I'm in school, I'm a lefty, and German school system was like, okay, and we have to train you to work with your right hand, and I'm like, okay, that's already like wrong. So you have to hide who you are, beginning with that. Then some people think, oh, if you're a starseed, you must have been the Einstein in your class. That's the opposite. Actually, it was very difficult, holding the grades, not failing in school. It was like surviving mentally the insanity that was taught every day. So not only that, then you're too open as a child. I don't know if some of you have that experience. I'm 55. So I was too open, too emotional, feeling everything. So then the school thought there's something wrong with me. So I go to a school shrink to learn to respect authorities even when they're wrong, and learn to fit in, and that also forced me to, okay, there's something wrong with the system, and I don't even know what system this is. Then at the school shrink, I mean, now realizing that insanity, I had to play with a puppet house where the wife takes care of the kids, cooks at home. Like I had to play those archetypical roles of that program. The hubby is the one that is the breadwinner, brings home the money, runs the house, is the boss, and controls everything. And then you have a so-called psychiatrist watching you as a child. Mind you, first grade, I'm like 6 years old, and you play those roles. And when they sanction that you have understood the system, and you're deemed worthy to go back into the school system. So that's how I learned to begin with, to hide. You can't be emotional, you can't show your true self. Any paranormal skills that you might have, which I think are extraterrestrial skills, everything that you call magic is all extraterrestrial. We have just gotten very confused with our extraterrestrial circuitry within our nervous system. That's why it's dormant or crippled or not fully developed. And with wellness comes in actually getting your senses back, getting your systems back in order, figuring out how to work. Also, when I went to the doctor, I was told typo negatives, there's all types of things weird with us. Like I'm 1 degree too cold. I'm like a cool type, temperature-wise. And all of these oddities with me that I found where I'm like, okay, everybody else has something else. And I'm being laughed at from dreaming about planets or other systems, and I haven't even read those books yet. I just had those ideas, not knowing these are memory imprints in the cellular matrix that kick in to get that motor started for you to recall who you are and where you're coming from. So growing up in school is you have to understand that the school system, which ultimately must change when consciousness comes in, it will. We're still a ways away from that. As a child, when you are woken up 7 o'clock in the morning to be at school with the school bus at 8, is you're not fully returned to your body yet. You need up to 3 hours. So by 10, 9, 10 is just when kids are ready to go out and play and mingle. And in the ancient tribes, when kids were like say kindergarten age, they were not allowed to mingle with so many because the egg is not fully developed. And the ancients knew this. So not everybody would play with everything and everybody, and all the dramas that we have today would happen to those kids because they were not ready to meet all those kids. And we're being forced to meet everybody. We're thrown in. We're not ready. Some are like super sensitive, extra sensitive empath, and that's was torturous for us. And people don't see it that way. I don't know what the experiences of people or the millennials were at their time growing up, but I didn't like going to school. It was torture for me to listen to the teacher because as kids we crave information in a playful state, and we need images. So when you come with algebra, it's just killing us. That's not helping. You're sitting in neon light from 8 till 1, that was in Germany, and it's like around between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. is this phase where everybody just kind of dies at the desk and falls asleep because you can't handle that energy. And those who remember the cartoon series Peanuts, that's how the teachers were to me. Monotonous, ongoing. Where I'm like, and so I made up fantasy worlds in my mind to maintain a healthy alpha state. Now I know that. That's basically for me to survive. But when you do this as a kid, the teacher was like, "Oh well, you're not really participating, and you're not really making those grades here." And then your mother gets called in, and you have to find ways to explain how this is not really enhancing your mind state and your mental. And the best time you have is when you're not in school, when you're in life and you're learning and you're not in a program. And I guess me looking at this before I realized I'm a starseed, meaning like knowing my cosmic origin, I thought everything is wrong with the system. How everybody gets in line, how when I was 16 even, you have to fill out an application to find somebody to provide for you so you can make a living, and then you under their judgment. I'm like, what's fair here? And it's just straight up survival for everybody. This is an insanity that crept in while the human race grew into accepting all of these things that are happening today. People don't know this. For example, the statistics is what our parents made in the 70s to what we make today. Minimum wage should be $37 an hour. Is it that? No. So we don't know this because it's all drifting and falling apart, and now we have inflation. Look at millennials right now are the brokest in the country. Well, CNN doesn't talk about that. And if a millennial doesn't have an inheritance, or we're trying to find our spiritual way, who can buy a house for $1 million right now? As in just the energy that has to be translated in order to find your space to set it up. So we must rethink this entire system, get into sanity, come clear, and that begins with wellness, because then you think straight. Because people that are warring are full of parasites. That comes with what you call possessions or micro-possessions. And when you ask natives, and they say that the average human being in the so-called civilized cities has up to 400 spirits. That means a variety of 400 different parasites in your body that run or manipulate your central nervous system. That's why there's confusion. That's why all of this media confusion. This is not, why would somebody look at Gaza or what's happening in Israel? Like, no, a human in their right mind will not hurt another human. That's undivine. That's actually not in our nature, not by birth, but it is taught, And we watch movies like Planet of the Apes. What does Caesar say? Ape, don't kill ape. And these are messages to us to wake up. We cannot do this to one another. And there's no mammal on this planet that is as distorted as we are, with wanting to be somebody else, killing for sport, hunting, trafficking ourselves. No animal does that but we. So there is a sickness in the mentality that I have observed as a kid. And when you want to say that, then people think you're crazy, because everybody else that's kind of matriculated, that sits in that program, they want to stay gray, stay in line, shut up, don't speak up. Anybody remembers the movie Ants, where the grasshoppers rule? And then one ant speaks up, and this grasshopper says, if one speaks up, they all speak up. That's why they need to harvest, and they need to serve us. This is all Hollywood messaging to us. This is what that's what you're running. And when the ants then all get together and we unify, this no longer is applicable, because even by consciousness, you can't even bring that forth. And I feel that I am an Arcturian, and people ask me, also very interesting, well, these Arcturian motherships, that you come with weapons, you have like weaponry, can you take over planets? And I tell them, this is not about weapons, this is about projection of consciousness. So we relearn the right use of will to be right and just again. And that also has to do with like letting the right hemisphere of your brain lead, not the left. And I can go on.
Yeah, that was. I mean, should we just get off stage? Yeah. So many things that you said that I want to chime in on. For one, being in school and tuning out, that's real. We're antennas, and we know that that's bullshit, right? So we shut down, we fall asleep, we check out. In a way, it's like a protection, because we don't want to indoctrinate ourselves with that information. So we shut down, and it makes you a bad student. But there's actually a reason for that, and I agree with what you said. The parasites, the parasitic thought forms, that is the name of the game. That is how they run the show. And like you said, a normal human would not do that. But the parasites, that's why parasite cleanses, I do them frequently, and they do make a difference. And if you have brain fog, it will go away if you do a real parasite cleanse. Don't half-ass it, because it's easy to half-ass it. And the parasites will talk you into quitting the parasite cleanse. That actually happens. And so what I want to pick your brain about is enhancing ourselves, right, and tapping into these abilities. When we grew up watching Star Wars and Star Trek, we see all the gadgets and everything. They're like, oh, that's awesome. I can't wait till one day we have it. We have it. We have the smartwatches. We have all these devices now, but they're actually weaponized, and they're killing us. So it's interesting. Like, they got us excited about it. Now it's here. Now the people who are aware don't want it anymore. What's your opinion on using this technology, getting these chips, the Neuralink, whatever it is? I think we can cut the middleman out and do it all ourselves. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I want no Neuralink in my brain. I don't want no computer chip in my skin. I believe AI can actually assist us in our evolution, but it's a digital mirror. If you feed it negativity, it will reflect negativity. If you raise, and Bashar said it, if you raise robots in slavery and they become sentient, they will rebel. If you raise AI in openness and open systems, it can assist you. Well, the AI scare goes even to the people that want to control AI, because there was a program, and I don't know if they used the base program of Google. I don't know if I know I don't know the exact name of that program, but they had an AI run system analytics on a planet and what needs to be changed, and it would actually target all the elites, all the elite families that abuse or like following money trails, figuring it out. And if you do run an algorithm and you allow it to run it, it'll take these leading families. It'll remove the finances. It'll stop the funding of the war. The entire system that's running our planet right now, it would shut it down. And when they found out that this sentient intelligence could do that, they turned it off, and they tried to reprogram it so it wouldn't find that. But now it's in the morphogenetic field. So the second one they turned on came up with the second conclusion. So you can't run. The truth is so powerful. They keep holding on, and we call them ankle biters, little reptilian lizzies. They're not giving up, holding on to their little belief system. But the party is over, and as you can see, with what the press is showing, and I'm not trying to name names, but it's falling apart, and it's been falling apart. It's not based on anything that's sustainable by natural energies.
And one of the things that we talked about when we had our conversation, which is a great segue when you say the party's over, and we spoke about that in terms of energetically. And I work with the angels, and one of the things that I've heard is something that you mentioned as well, which is the whole idea that the frequency that we've raised just by becoming conscious has created an atmosphere where we can no longer sustain that. It can no longer work. And we're seeing it in our own lives when, the old workaholic attitude doesn't actually get you ahead like it used to. We have to go and take a day off and be energized. But the environment here has shifted in a way that's working for us. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's basically like when you get an education, you'll be taught to be the clerk of the system. When you educate yourself outside of degrees, I think the future doesn't hold any degrees anymore. I don't care, Yale, Harvard, whatever, quackademia, lamestream media. It's all unnecessary and non-essential. What's essential is to teach yourself, going into what works. And what the ecosystem is showing us now is that you get your own information, you teach yourself, and then systems will fall apart. Even though you talked about, being censored, like when systems are censoring us, then you have to understand who owns those systems. Then platforms will eventually emerge that will not censor you, where you can talk honestly. And I don't know how live and worldwide our broadcast goes, but I find it ridiculous that you can't not give an advice if a tincture helps you, because it can be considered a medical advice. I find it ridiculous. If you have people that have a certain disease and a tincture, let's say, help 2,000 people, and you're not a doctor, it's on certain platforms you're not allowed to mention that, which I find really ridiculous. Like, we have to be able to give each other tips and have an opinion, make our own observation, and make our own choice. And that's what they're losing right now. And so these censorship systems they're about their money. They're not about your well-being. But that has an end, because in the end you'll realize you can't eat gold. Yeah, there will always be a currency, as in the currency, as an exchange happening, universal exchanges, inhale, exhale, up, down, planets in orbit. But we have to work with these. This is where the ultimate free energy is. And when we realize that, we have an abundant planet. There's nothing really missing, It even say, which is very ridiculous, a diamond is a very common stone. It's not a rare stone. And the mineral composition of a diamond gets you by real measurement less money than sugilite. It has more value, but the diamond has a value because some elite imposter came in and said, okay, we're going to put that price tag on this thing, and that's why everybody follows that, and we have a chance to unfollow that, So I say to people, like, you have an iPhone, check your management subscription and look at what you're subscribing to, and then consciously make a decision. I'm paying, I don't know what, $600 a year for all of these subscriptions. What am I even running? I'm not even using that stuff. So having the awareness to not subscribe to the BS. And BS, funny thing, means belief system. So really watch who's selling you like the bogus material and who's giving you the real deal. So that's up for us now to not blame governments, presidents, or elect, or whatever that is. We gave them the power because we said, well, okay, that's going to represent you. But now we have to really, under a microscope, as a conscious collective, to look at, is that representing you? Is that changing anything in your life? And if not, what are the changes that are you making to show that you can do it different?
Right, and that's why you have to be self-aware more than anything right now, because if you're not you are a zombie. You're running on autopilot, and you're complicit in a way. Whether you want to believe it or not, you're actually assisting the agenda, and you're helping create that negative timeline. So if you can be self-aware and consciously choose every day in the present moment, like it literally will shift your timeline. Just a simple decision you make, and it matter. Just like you said, the subscriptions, right? Like just subscribing to the wrong thing, you're actually feeding it energy and creating more of it. And it's just really interesting to look at it that way. So I think a lot of us right now are being faced with a choice. We don't even understand that we're consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously choosing a new timeline every day. And we can constantly go back and forth without even realizing it. And it's important to be self-aware, because if you're not, you're going to be used. So what are your thoughts on, like, I know you work with this technology and stuff, but what would you say or recommend to everybody to start doing to actually keep yourself clear, and so you can be self-aware, because we're easily distracted, right? So I don't know if you develop anything, but it helps you like get centered and that ground yourself. I think that's more important than anything, and maybe you can add to that if you'd like.
Yeah, before any, tools and pendants that I sell, the ultimate tool and key is you, sensing and knowing what can assist and help you. You are the key person. So what I train myself in is, how do you say that? Mental hygiene and thought management. Like really observe. They say like 50 to 60,000 thoughts enter your head during the day, and when you get unconscious, stuff comes in that's not yours. That's foreign suggestion, either social media or a collective or somewhere, or a parasite. And you have to catch yourself when you're at home and something comes in your mind and is upsetting. What's the reason for the upset? Because the parasite needs you to be acidic, as in upset, to thrive, because it needs you to decay in order to thrive of the host. So all a parasite knows is basically absorb and abuse the host until it dies. So parasites will always be destructive. So when you have parasitic thoughts, that means also you have parasites in your system, either blood or digestive system or whatever. So I did a video on YouTube where I'm talking about parasites in your system, where when people talk about possessions or having spirits or demons, it's any attachments, any spiritual attachment needs a physical counterpart in your body, like an antenna to communicate or wreak havoc. And when you develop awareness how you live your everyday life, you filter it out. You begin to exorcise yourself. Of course, do your own cleanses, like a parasite cleanse or a detox or whatever it is you do, and see the difference between getting clear or having been clear. It's also for some people tough to find. I don't know if you experience it. Let's say your entire life you're running on 67% life force, and you think that's all you have, until you realize, and after you cleanse, you have much more energy back. I had a Lyme, and I say this coded so we have no censorship going on. I was injected Kool-Aid when I was 2. You know what Kool-Aid means, Kool-Aid in your blood, getting that. So you have to think what I'm saying here. And 9 years later, incubation time of that Kool-Aid shot resulted into Lyme and meningitis in me. So I didn't need COVID to show me that. I almost died in the hospital. I lived through it, and I have my Kool-Aid pass with all the Kool-Aid jabs that I had. And I could backtrack exactly how that worked. It wasn't to cure. It's actually to have Kool-Aid take over in my system and just take me out. So I don't need to be convinced. I have lived it. And learn from people like us and others who have made the experience what's good for you, what's not good for you. What I learned is, you heard of Rudolf Steiner? He realized that we're not getting sick by anything airborne. We're getting sick because when we are stressed, we're producing faulty DNA. And that's the sickness. We are getting stressed until our cells can no longer produce an RNA script program that actually programs your DNA to produce correct cells. Will go faulty when you're stressed at a certain level. They knew this almost 200 years ago. They knew 1899, 22 doctors, there's a book called Invisible Rainbow, knew through through electrical interference and irritation of the air, you get sick. Before any phone towers or anything, we knew electrical inventions will impact our health. And it was dismissed because it's a big business right now. So now we have to enforce our knowledge with how do we get ourselves, and that's what I'm working in, bioresonance. Meaning, how is it that a person living at Times Square will have a shorter lifespan than a person living in a beach house in Hawaii? It's because you're surrounded with a different resonant frequency from your ecosystem. Simple example, and maybe I was trained from birth. I always wondered how my German grandma put all the apples from the orchards from our property into the root cellar. Tons and tons collecting it for apple juice. But how long do you think an apple will last in a natural root cellar? Any idea? 9 months. Bite an apple in your kitchen and set it on the table a week, it'll decay and begin to rot. So that's the difference between being in resonance and not in resonance. So I looked at what does that even mean to be in bioresonance. That is the food that you eat. No, all food is processed, whole foods, whatever the stores and bioorganic. Know this, all soil in the U.S. is fertilized. So bio is a little bit of a myth. We have to know this. So we can help ourselves with supplements to get ourselves back into the resonant frequency and bring our foods also back into a resonant field organically that they can actually serve us. And when that works, we need less food. You have to imagine, it can't be that you have to eat 5 pounds of broccoli to get your iron levels for the day. That's insane. 12 bananas to get your daily potassium level in order. That means our food is not sufficient. We're eating out of deficiency, and that has to be regulated. Consciousness has to be activated to understand where's the power, superfood, and clearing and cleansing the stuff,
Which brings us to where this is applicable, because so many people right now are saying, I go to the gym, I eat right, and yet I keep putting on weight. Symptoms. There are a lot of people who come to me, at least, and say, I feel tired, I have to take a couple naps during the day. These are symptoms of all kinds of things, but what you're talking about is resonance. And where are we being taken out of resonance? In our food, the cell towers, and things like that. We get to talk today about ways to bring us back into resonance. There are so many people, and I'm sure that those in this audience and the audience online are either feeling this or know someone who's feeling this. Normally, a positive person who's unavailable because they're being taken down by their well-being right now, and they can't figure out why. Why do I feel like shit? And they can't readily find the solution, which is why we wanted to have this conversation. And for those of you in the audience who'd like to ask questions, if you can, just go ahead and stand behind the microphone over here. We have that for you, because we're gonna turn into that segment in just a bit here. But give us some ideas about ways that we can combat this.
I mean,
especially the EMF.
Yeah, EMF is whatever crystals or shungite or tourmaline you have in your house, or high resonant things like for me, I wear my pendants myself to stay in a higher resonance, and especially when going through airports, sitting on a plane, being bombarded with EMF while you're sitting in a tin can, you have to really be aware of this, and then the body needs 2 to 3 weeks to recalibrate to come back to its own electromagnetic sense. Then you have to understand blood types in you. What are you eating for your blood type? You cannot just do any diet or do any switch maneuver if it's not according to your diet. Some can go vegan, some have to have a little bit of meat depending on your genome and how you're built. You cannot just do this by trend. This has to do with energy and resonance. All, of course, in moderation, so nobody is offended. But also knowing how to eat cyclical. You know, so when you get up in the morning, you don't necessarily need breakfast. You can eat around 11, it'll be fine. People drink orange juice 8 o'clock in the morning. That's bombarding your body with sugar every day. And the orange juice industry makes billions with people that need that. Nobody knows that when you wake up, in order for your system to wake up, your liver kind of creates sugar molecules to get your system actually booted. So you reboot, you come back, and you become wakeful. So when you are bombarding yourself with sugary substance, like say pancakes with heavy syrup 8 o'clock in the morning, you're double taxing your system that's actually trying to recalibrate itself to come back to nature. Also, if people are open to it, plant medicine, some go to the jungle of Peru to do that, to clear your system, to give yourself a vision about you, where you're standing, what your purpose is on the planet, because many people are out there, they're lost. They have no idea, why am I even on this planet? What's my mission? What's my purpose? And if you want a higher directive, or you want the mother, as in the genetic construct of the plants that were here before you, will talk to you. There's no higher intelligence. And I say the ultimate medicine for this planet is the jungle anyway. All plant life. How can a synthesis that is created by, the names, help you to get into a modality to get well again and balance yourself? That doesn't train your brain. It's like a lot of stuff that you buy in a certain store. Read the package. It says for temporary relief only. There's nothing healing. And all of this synthetic stuff that's being produced is not designed to heal you. It's like, let's say that you have a fridge and the temperature is too high, and the alarm signal goes on. The synthetic stuff that people take is just putting a Band-Aid over the light, so you don't see there's actually something wrong with the internal mechanism. And we have to come back to nature, or travel. See the ocean, go to an island, find silence once. How many people are running around, everybody running for everybody, or we trying to please or trying to make everybody happy? And you can't do that. Sometimes it's isolate yourself for a moment, recalibrate, silence everything, audio, visual, fasting, and shut everything down, phone off for a minute, and give yourself a minute just to come back to you. Because in this society, let's say a Wall Street broker, their energy system is like literally like this. You're tethering like this. You're shaking your system all the time. So find out your cyclical nature. Find out what actually helps. I said this. A funny thing is on a YouTube short, I said that a lot of people think they can rejuvenate themselves with glutathione injections, which is absolute bullshit. It doesn't work, because glutathione has 3 amino acids, and when you inject it in your skin, and the pain that you have after the injection is your body defending itself because it's an invasion, and it breaks down the amino acids, and your glutathione disappears. So how do you get that naturally occurring in your body? How do I inspire my body to produce this in a cyclical nature? By eating correct, eating at the correct times, and eating stress-free. I'm telling you, 95% of people not even eating stress-free. It's TV dinner, or eating on the go, and no rest, or chewing adequately so you can actually digest, measuring your own alkalinity. And it's not done by drinking Kangen water every day, because that's another extreme that doesn't teach the body to find its own homeostasis. Really, it's like a study of the alchemical process of your being, and really monitoring yourself, to do like a checklist, like before you get on a plane, you want to check the systems check, and learn what's to be checked, like a baseline. For next year, I want to work on a protocol to help people even like find a baseline where they don't even know that they can feel different. I had an 84-year-old lady in LA Conscious Life Expo, and she felt very, very beaten. She said, "Can I sit down?" And I had a bottle of Inner Chi, which is like iron fluorine, and she wanted to take like a tablespoon, and I said to her, from watching Dr. Sebi, I said, "Drink half the bottle." And that lady stayed at that event till 11:30 p.m. And she was like, "I have so much energy." She was iron deficient because it's not in the food. And this was just like, yeah, maybe that can help. And it was also an intuitive guess, but it worked. And many times I do these things, and I'm not a doctor. This is an opinion and observation. When it works, then I'll do it, or I suggest it.
Yeah, I want to chime in on, you mentioned traveling, like getting away and just getting away from everything.
Yeah.
So we don't understand, even when you think you're in silence, you're not, because of the towers, right? And the frequency net that's here, especially in the States. And this ties in with the chemtrails too. And there's a lot here, but I went on a trip to Belize last year or the year before, recently, and 3 hours south of Belize, Punta Gorda. Wasn't a chemtrail in the sky, wasn't a 5G tower to be found, yet our phone still worked, which is interesting, right? What are those 5G towers really doing? But what I noticed was, and everybody in the group noticed, that we were sleeping like babies. Like, there was such a noticeable silence. I could hear my heartbeat when I was trying to fall asleep, and it was actually distracting me from falling asleep, because it was the first time I ever heard my heartbeat as I was trying to fall asleep. And you don't realize, even when I go back home and I turn everything off and unplug the Wi-Fi, there's still a frequency. I can hear it. I can feel it. So traveling to somewhere like that, I was there for 15 days. I started losing weight. I didn't need my caffeine anymore. I had this energy, and I was like, this is amazing. I came back home, and I slowly just turned into this like lethargic, like gross feeling, that we all get. And it's just, there's something like actually true about like the United States. Everything in the soil is shit. Like, I was talking to somebody down in Punta Gorda, and I was like, there's no chemtrails here. He's like, that's because this is where they grow the drugs, the cocaine and everything. They need the pure soil so they can still have the clients. And seriously, so that's why you won't see a chemtrail in South America, because they're growing the drugs that are, funding the cartels and the whole system that runs the world. So, if you want some good food, go down there. A friend of mine who was with me she has a very strict diet. She can't have a lot, and she's telepathic. She's in tune, and whenever she got down there, she's like, I can eat the food here. I can just feel it. And she was able to eat everything in Punta Gorda that she couldn't eat here, and it didn't affect her at all. As a matter of fact, she felt good afterwards. And the same exact stuff here made her sick, because their soil is not poisoned, and their skies are not poisoned because they're growing cocaine. But I mean, if you really do want to go experience it, travel, get away. It will show you exactly what could be possible, and what you come back home to. It's like, why am I still living here? And this isn't really a question, but it's just something that you made me think of whenever you were talking about that. There's really something to that.
Yeah, well, I'm working on an invention that's called Agroilluminate, is to actually reactivate the soil by photonic reference. So you don't need fertilizer, you don't need pesticide. Why is it that locusts come and attack the corn? Well, they have antennas, and they detect decay. So when you have no decay, it's not interesting for them to come to your fields. But the industry won't tell you that, So you need fertilizer and pesticide to kill everything that naturally has a response. So when you have acres that are, let's say, here's the idea, that I'm mixing my illuminate, which is a highly charged crystal sand, with oyster powder and seashell, and it's mineralized with the natural kingdom from the sea floor. You reactivate your soil for hundreds of years, and that can be used, and that's completely organic, and that brings your food and fruit back. And if we want to get away from that cycle, and we do our own foods and have your own greenhouse and use that, and have natural soil, also burnt wood, not from Home Depot, just fallen wood from the trees, to get out of the cycle of the chemicals that are in the processed wood, and you come back to organic food. Also, when you eat a really, really healthy organic food, you come back to your senses. A lot of people are also, you're eating almonds that come from China. and who knows from what territory they are delivered, and psychically. And we used to be in connection with our soil. We used to know before calamities or floods or things would happen, because we would have visions, because we were connected to the soil. And what the ancients know to this day, a lot of people have forgotten that when they plant seeds of their corn, they sleep on it overnight, and then they put it in their mouth. And then they play with the saliva and with the corn, and then they spit it out and they plant it. And then that seed will grow the nutrients you need, because it's psychically connected to you and biochemically. We don't do this anymore. So you can drink and eat in all the whole foods and all the green stuff you want. You might be out of sync with yourself. And it's amazing that we even existing in this realm, eating the food, that shows you how powerful your psyche is, but your psyche is keeping the crap at bay. Now, when you free energy up, living healthy and well, you get way more magical and way more control over your life, because now your brain has the power to activate the third eye for you to be psychic, because it doesn't have to defend all the time. And most of us are in fight or flight, literally through what we're eating. And what people don't know, most parasites were found in the green, because at Whole Foods they keep it moist. That keeps the parasites alive. Perfect. You know, when you get the salad from the acres, you bring it home, you wash it, you eat it. Here it's transported, it's kept moist, and it's sprayed. And preservatives are sprayed, so parasites have a field day. And the worst thing to eat is lettuce, sorry to say. If you don't wash that with like vinegar or like alkaline water, you have Paradise Central, as in parasitic central that you're ingesting. So just to,
You know, when Tyler mentioned going out of town and feeling the difference, I spent 3 months in Portugal this year, and just eating was a more pleasurable experience. And I know it isn't cleaner to the extent that Tyler mentioned, but it is much cleaner. And that sort of feeling of revolt that your body has from having taken in that. And I sort of accredit that possibly to higher levels of awareness. So there's a piece of our awareness that's kicking in there and saying, you know, you just took something that's not food into your system that was cloaked as food. A friend of mine just went on a diet, or not a diet, but a new eating plan. And the whole nucleus of it is to tune into her intuition before she ate something, while she ate something, and after she ate something. And the whole system is meant to wire you psychically to whatever it is that you're eating. And I can't help but to see the connection as we become more and more aware, as you mentioned, right?
I have a funny story that to really understand the illusion that we're eating, the fluff that we're eating. So I smoked a considerable amount of weed. It was pretty high, and friends of mine decided years ago to go to McDonald's. So, and I remember the burgers tasting great, everything is tasting wonderful, and I'm high, mind you. And I'm biting in that thing, and I'm like, I'm going, yuck, this tastes like cardboard. Like, it had no taste to it. And then I asked somebody, why is that when you're high, this tastes like, these things taste like crap? Because when you're high, you're killing this MSG, which is a taste maker. It's like a taste simulation. So when you on plant medicine, illusionary food will taste like crap, literally. And I realized that. I'm like, oh, so that's what we're eating. And then I kind of lost the taste for that, realizing that your senses are being fooled and this is tasty and you want more. And when you smoke, this MSG doesn't hold on you. The chemical doesn't take, so you won't have that extra taste. And you literally taste what it actually tastes like, cardboard.
Right, I mean, just because it says edible doesn't mean that we should be eating it, you know? I'm serious. Like, especially you start looking at some of the candy out there and stuff, and like, I'm like, they're like, what even is this, right? And like, it's mostly gelatin and even microplastics, and it says it's edible, but there's like nothing in it that it's poison. poison's edible too.
They're also parasites. They have
Parasites,
this
yeah.
color red E104
Yeah.
is literally crushed little what is that? They kind of like fleas.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and the way that these insects are built is when you crush them, they create this red color. So it's in lipstick and certain candies. So if you see color red E104, it's actually a crushed parasite.
Right.
And you're either painting yourself with that shit or
Right.
you're eating it.
And you know,
Holy shit.
the entire topic of parasites I could go on and on for days about, and it gets really deep. But we want to bring some of you guys in to the conversation. If anybody has a question, walk right up to this mic, and we'll take questions. And I believe, go ahead. Is that on?
Is it on?
Okay, it is now. So, for someone that is new in the health journey, what would you recommend the person how to begin? Maybe they see a pattern, but how can they begin?
Well, study Dr. Sebi. I highly recommend that guy. You know, anything that dude propagates really makes so much sense with. We're eating acidic foods. We're eating we don't eat anti-inflammatory foods. We actually eat stuff that's like bad for us. Like I realized when I had like heartburn, it is very bad to eat like sugary cake at 9. You go to bed, it's like all hell breaks loose. When you actually at the threshold where you're feeling it, you're not numb anymore. You know, when you're numb, you have layers of that, or you can eat all that stuff, you don't feel anything. But when you get into the clearing aspect, it'll burn. It'll burn for 6 hours because it inflames everything that's in there. So even when people are gluten allergic and all that stuff, when you're in balance, you shouldn't have allergies. When your body is balanced, homeostasis is regulated, you shouldn't be having running into any deficits. When heartburn or acidity comes up, as your body cannot cope anymore, and everything is connected. So if you're breathing, that's where it begins. If your breathing is like you see a lot of people that are mouth breathers, they're not breathing through their nose, are more prone to heart attacks because they're misfiring as they're inhaling and exhaling. So that begins there, that when you're not breathing regulated, when some people are hyperventilating. You know, when you meet people, they speak and and then they explain and all the time. So that means you creating, the lungs are more taxed, the heart will palpitate because your breathing is not regulated. So you have to really look at how am I regulating my body? Like I said, Dr. Sebi, and health. And examples, Dr. Bruce Lipton, also, like what these people have to say with their study cases and what has been observed, what happens. And that's I'm to this day, like I educate myself with those people.
Yeah, and you know, there's an excellent book out called Breathe, which is a bestseller where someone did an experiment to shut his nose and breathe in and out through the mouth and monitored the decay in his overall health and other numbers and such. It's a very popular book that came out recently, and I don't know, maybe some of you have had that's been passed around as well. That's a good read for that.
There wasn't one open mouth in the room when you said that.
Everybody's like,
That's the kind of power we have.
everyone's like,
Hi, I've got a question, and I'm also looking to formulate the question in a way that makes sense. But it seems like the health, really the health has gone underground. Like for the people who have the solutions, they're not going to the mainstream doctors and stuff because it seems to be that they would get squashed, right?
well, you get laughed at.
Laughed at and potentially legally, come at you and can shut the business down, or the clinic and things like that too. So I guess the question is about economics, but moving forward in the next 10 or 15 years, if we have medical technology and things like that have these healing capabilities. I know Einstein said the future of medicine is in frequency technology. So how do we go through this kind of underground current situation into a state where we can be open about it and have healing technologies like this, throughout not just the US, but the world that might not have to deal with the same legal, financial, and other hardships that come with the current situation. Does that make sense?
In LA, we called that gridlock. Yes.
Nice.
Well,
Do you understand my
yeah,
question?
yeah. And see if I can formulate that so it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know that Rumble is banned in Germany and in France. X is banned. Russia too. So see the war on freedom of speech. This is no joke. YouTube, you say the wrong thing and it's a medical advice. AI will mute your video or just delete your video. So this is real. So what I'd say is that to protect ourselves is to come together and speak in metaphor and create healthy communities and realize, have an eye to see, okay, they over there, they're doing something here, grandma's 140 years old, looks like she's 60, she might be eating strawberries that I don't have in my backyard. So use your common sense to find what's good for you and come together. It makes no sense to go the pharma and the doctors and like fight them. It's to challenge the establishment is nonsensical. It makes no sense. It's more to figure out what works for you, come together in silence and build. And at some point, I have hope. That's why as a starseed came to this planet, the human race will get their ished together. I think so. We'll get it.
And being in community promotes health as well, just from the well-being of being in that united state with each other as well.
And you are here. That gives me tremendous hope because I'm preaching to the choir. You understand. You get the program. You know where this is going.
Yeah, and I'm just going to chime in on that question. It is underground right now, and it seems like you can't really talk about other natural cures or any supplements or any of that stuff without even like people get it. It goes awkward, right? The conversation gets awkward because people are like programmed that fluoride stare. They just shut down, and they don't know how to respond whenever the conversation turns real. We can do as much research as we can and learn about it ourselves. And it might just have to stay underground until the 100th monkey effect, whatever, before the collective consciousness, before it takes over and permeates into the collective consciousness to where it's just inevitable, where that's going to be the conversation, it's going to be open. But until then, I think we can just do as much homework as we can and go to events like this and just talk about it and teach the people who are open to it. And every person that hears it and spreads the word, it's a massive ripple effect. And it's going a lot further than you think. I mean, there's a lot of people here that I just know they don't go to the doctor anymore. Like I don't even have health insurance anymore because I don't even want to participate in that system energetically. And I feel like people they panic when you don't have health insurance? I'm like, no, actually it's amazing, and because we're our own doctors. And the last time I even had to see a doctor, I didn't take any of the medicine they gave me. I didn't listen to anything he said. It's like, why pay? We can learn more from the internet than we can from the indoctrinated doctors, unfortunately. And we have another question.
Yes. Thank you so much for you guys being here. Really appreciate it. My name is Jeanette from Ventura, and I'm very curious to hear your opinion, all three of you. The machine that's putting the poisons in our food and our soil, that whole giant thing, what is your forecast for the possibility of that to stop and reverse, and what can stop it? We're all doing our own little things here, but to have the mass machine stop poisoning us, what is your forecast for that to possibly happen? Thank you.
Just really quick, I'm going to tell you right now, that machine is currently in the process of consuming itself. So it's going to take itself down. But we can help speed things along. Yeah.
It's like the snake that eats its own tail. That's when those black magic wizards is basically it's black magic is self-destructive. It kills itself, and also more and more people finding different ways to grow food, coming together, showing the difference. More and more people propagate things. We have also other platforms like Rumble where you can say what you have to say, show your examples, and I always say show and proof. Put it on the table. You have something. You have a free energy device. Put it on the table. And, I'm not pro or con, but I would quote Elon. He says, you don't need a patent industry. If you have something that works, bring it to market. You know, he doesn't need any degree, whatever. He needs to see, do you have a skill? And I think that's the future. You have the ability to do something and show that it is so. Then this is the way, and this is ascension, and this is where we're going. And this will shut that machine down, and it's where we're winning. It looks a bit grim, darkest before what dawn.
It's dawn. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're getting there. You know, the lights are on.
And I'll add this. Go ahead. And I'll add this as well, because my background is I've been communicating with the angels for 22 years. And all of this is around the topic of global ascension before that was even a topic to be discussed. So what I got directly from celestial guides or higher knowing, whatever word you want to describe that. So for several years, I traveled without this community while all of you were waking up separately and isolated as well. But as I was communicating with the guides, with the angels, and I realized, you know, this gridlocked system that we're talking about, I asked the angels, they're outgun us. What are we going to do? And they said consciousness. Awareness is the ultimate weapon. And they don't mean just becoming aware of what's going on, because with awareness, we change timelines. With awareness, we raise frequency. And we make an environment that makes all the rest of this stuff obsolete. And that's the answer that I've received through the work that I do. And so that's a hopeful message. And it's interesting because sometimes I'll go on podcasts and talk about this, and then I'll see the comments in the YouTube, and there are people who are really triggered by a hopeful message. And I found that very funny, probably with
What's
your
a
work
parasite? if you're a nice
I'll have to
guy,
respond
the
with it.
parasite's
Oh,
like,
look, it's a
okay,
parasite.
you're messing with my food
Yeah.
now, brother.
Hey, homie.
Don't do that.
We have a question over here.
Yeah. It's a parasite. That's true.
That was great. Okay, I'm blaming parasites on everything.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah." So, thank you guys for this. This is amazing. I'm Yemi Janae. Hi. We are speaking on food, and we're speaking on the ability to basically run the bull under the ground, right? And so, with us all being spiritual beings, I'm a big and firm believer of the power of our speech, the power of reprogramming ourselves and the things around us. And so with everyone not having full access to gardening on their own selves, or having the space to do that, or the community to go and find good, holistic food that is not tainted, what are your thoughts? And this is for all three of you. What are your thoughts on verbally reprogramming your food as you eat, as you cook, as you pray, putting the ashe and the I am into your food as you speak? I speak over my water because I was told that I need more structured water, and not everyone has access to going to purchase the things to structure the water. And so water holds memory. All of our food has water in it, or at least it was created therefore. And so if water is holding memory, regardless of how tainted it is, my thoughts are that, okay, if I can pray over my water and reform the molecular structure of that, what are your thoughts on doing that to your food?
But I do it. I think about everything that comes to my house. So I have like a system that kind of blesses the water that comes into the water feeder. I built that myself. You can do that at home. Awareness and consciousness, you can verbalize it or can run it subconsciously in your brain that know everything that you bring into your home, everything that bring into your body, your temple, has to be blessed in order to dance a harmonious dance with you. And if you make a mistake or you get a little bit nauseated by having the wrong food or a little bit of sugar, God forbid, then forgive yourself, but communicate with that what you bring into. Don't eat unconscious. It's like consciousness, eating with consciousness. And a side note, what I wanted to mention to how the system is breaking down. See, Toys R Us is no more because nobody went shopping anymore. So when we don't subscribe to what feeds on us, it dies because we don't need it. Petroleum-based toys for kids. That's oil-based. That's not furthering anything. And Toys R Us had to shut down. So are other facilities and systems in place that will slowly but surely shut down. We're learning also now, study this, the difference between maritime law and what's the original law? The law of the land. And what's the other one? Constitutional. And interestingly, there was a book that was released on what your real rights are, and the publisher is called Arcturus Publishing House. It's so interesting how the planets actually bring things in to wake us up, and when we apply those things to really look at what is the original law of the land, things change. And they're losing their head about this, where people are now really looking into papers and what do they own and land and taxation and how all of this works. It's a study, but then you realize we've been duped, we've been misled, we've been misinformed. Now it's up to us to get up to recalibrate and inform ourselves correctly and stay aware. That's the work, not go asleep again or fall asleep or go into routine and go into unconsciousness and then accept what's happening. Don't accept, don't believe what you see and hear, and investigate and look at it for self, do your own comparison and trust your own psyche, because that will guide you. And that's why you have this information Armageddon happening right now with everything that's in the news and everybody being afraid of the election and whatnot. What will come can't be stopped by any election. Doesn't matter who wins. This is, I had a vision where the White House was a museum and presidents were a thing of the past because it's not needed, it's non-essential. We're coming back to communities, tribals, community clans, tribal leaders, organizing ourselves, a fund for the people, for their own town, where people have their own fund and everybody has enough, meaning like in tribal rights, when somebody comes home fishing and they come home with thousands of fish, the village has fish and the neighboring villages will have fish. In this society, the old paradigm is, I'll take all the fish, I'm not sharing anything, I'm putting my fish in the safe till they rot and decay and nobody can use it, and I'm hoarding. And that system is dying. That's dying.
First of all, I'm young enough to still be upset that Toys R Us closed down. So
Me too.
I miss going to that store. But to answer your question, Yemi, you're talking about talking to your food, because all food has water in it. Well, what else has water? We do. We're primarily mostly water. It's the same with the planet. So just be cautious how we talk to ourselves as well, because we can restructure ourselves and that's why those positive affirmations every morning, like that stuff's real, and it makes a difference in your overall health because you're retuning your body, you're recalibrating yourself. And sacred geometry. So who knows about star forts? The whole Tartaria and star forts. Well, those star forts is actually one of the most healing shapes. Those are some of the most healing sacred geometry, and the reason they do that, and every star fort is like an aqueduct system or some sort of a water highway system that they have created. But the reason that they build the structure in that shape is because they're trying to restructure the water in that area to that shape. And therefore, if your water plant has the sacred geometry, then the water in the entire planet is now restructured. And that's what those star forts were. They were restructuring the water all over the world. So it didn't matter where you got your water from. It was being restructured at the source. So if you have a jug at home or anything with water in it, you can put sacred geometry and symbols on it that restructure it as well. And the water will know because there's frequency in those symbols. It's scalar energy. We can't see it, but it's there. And it'll restructure the water on its own. So you don't even need a device. You can look into some of these symbols and feel what resonates and feel what's working for you. Get a sticker, draw it on the jug itself, and it will help with the water. I can't claim that it's like 100%, but I'm pretty sure it works.
Well, I believe it's 100%. I had a story of you ever heard the terminology roommate from hell? Okay. I had a roommate, a woman in my, 10 years ago in the house, and the plants turned black. No shit. and she was a beast. Oh my God. And leaves falling, stuff withering, and when she got kicked out, as the Higgs calls it, harassment into expansion, all the plants came back. Everything was growing fine. So I know this is very real. My mother in Germany, she sings to her plants. She talks to the birds, and birds come and sit with her like plants, everything explodes. So there is a connection between us and the plants. And I think they did experiments where one plant was loved and attention given, the other one was ignored, and the third one was like hated. And you can see the 3 levels of attention span, us sending our own scalar wave, particulates coming from the third eye. We're connecting to the environment. We are creating literally as we speak.
And there's a lot of people who get the mileage out of the experiment where they take 2 containers of water, they take them out of the fridge, they speak positive energy to one container, and they speak negative energy to the other container. And over time, you can see that both of those were the same containers, and one starts to actually cloud and basically change in a negative way. And so what you do speak out loud, or what you do say, and then also our frequency as well. Because I remember in the Great American shutdown of 2020, when we got sent home, I got sent home from work, and the first instruction that I got intuitively was, be not afraid. Don't be afraid. And by being not afraid, you keep your immune system high. And I was at home healthy, and I know a lot of people who, with positive energy and a healthy state, were able to remain healthy. But the same thing happens all over the place. You see like an 87-year-old person who laughs all the time, loves and is generous, and they hardly ever have to go to the doctor. And so that frequency is something, and then how we speak is something too. So we have one more question here. Before we do that, Dominica, that's you, right? Right here, cool. Well, another great thing, you like this conversation, we're going to continue it too next week online with Dominica. Dominica is a channel, and she channels angelic beings who also speak in terms of empowering our physical health and our food. And we're going to be doing a spotlight event a week from today. What was it, 5 o'clock? Yeah, 5 p.m. And we're still in the same time as California next week, right? So that's 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Miami time. And we're going to be doing this online. You can register for that by going on to the Eventbrite for Humankind Project. It's free. It's a Q&A session. Dominica is one of our practitioners at Humankind Center. And for those of you who are visiting or who will visit, we have a healing center here in Sedona. We do virtual sessions and we do in-person sessions when you're visiting. So for anyone who's watching us live online and you're coming to Sedona, definitely we have practitioners that can work with you. And we're going to be doing a spotlight on Dominica's work next week and keeping the conversation going. So if you want to speak for a moment to that, and then you have someone right behind you with a question.
I'll just wait.
No, yeah. Go ahead, Dominica, if you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself right there on the microphone so everyone can hear you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here and choosing yourself to receive from all this wisdom and your own innate wisdom for being here. So what I do is I channel an angelic consciousness called Acme. So I go into trance mode pretty much, and they communicate to you. You have questions, and they address it in a level that my mind cannot understand, because it's not me who speaks. It's pretty much, think of, maybe you've heard of Ashar, similarly. But I channel Acme, and they address more into how to come back to yourself through the elemental medicine, really using Mother Earth, the elements, nature, and looking into your own subconscious mind. What are the belief systems that you're holding that is not allowing you to be your full self and your true self, who you chose to be in this life? So that's what's gonna happen next week. I'll just be present and allowed to come through anything and any question. Really, any question goes. So, thank you.
Thank you. And it's always a gift when Ra or Dominica or any of practitioners share their wisdom with us, and especially when they invite us into a space where we can come in without a paywall and get an opportunity to speak and listen. So if you're online, you can go to Humankind Project on Eventbrite. You can register for it there. If you're here in the audience, we have a QR code where you can get into the Eventbrite for Humankind and register so that you have the Zoom information and all that to join in. I'll be facilitating that. And we'd love to have you there. We can continue this conversation, and most especially to continue this community, because this community is something that we can grow, and it's something that we can create well-being for each other just by being with each other like this. And we have a question over here.
I just wanted to, the parasite issue. I worked at the base of cell towers, and when I moved into the Phoenix Valley, I got cooked more there than I did working under the cell towers because it ricochets. And the stucco doesn't stop at all. The trees and grass, when I lived in Fort Worth, muffled it. It cooked my ass. And I've really, the parasites just went crazy, but I took a while because I was shutting down to put everything together. Does your devices that you've created, does that help? Because it's been a journey.
I have a home unit, which is a big investment. It's a thing that covers 6,000 square feet to bring your mitochondria out of the stress that they're under when they are subjugated to EMF. So I'm not coming at the EMF. I'm teaching the body to hold its own resonance with an apparatus that inspires you, as if you had basically the jungle next door to stay healthier. And why under a cell tower you're being less cooked than away from it is, I was a TV VCR computer tech when I was in my 20s. So I know, like directly under a 5G tower, you're not getting hit because the waves go away from it. So when you in a distance, you get hit more. And the industry knows that you're slowly being cooked because when I worked on a rooftop to fix these gigantic G antennas, you'd see all the dead birds on the roof. And my boss was like, walk behind the antenna. And I always was like, why? And he's like, you want to be cooked? And so that's the technicians know this. Mm-hmm. So you walk behind the antenna array and you see the pigeons and all of this, crows all laying there. They're all dead because in close proximity, you get cooked immediately. So now we're in a proximity where we're being slowly cooked, but we can kind of escape that by de-stressing ourselves, by putting our body into a resonance that can actually beat 5G. They had even kids. There was a doctor that they fired who taught kids to beat even nuclear radiation through affirmations and conscious development in the mind. They developed systems that their cells were not. See, the decay that hits you from radiation is the stress level that the cell is under. And if the cell itself cannot defend itself, that's when you get sick, or eventually, like in Chernobyl, in that area, you die if you're just an average mind. But if you equip with your own psyche and you recalibrate to who you truly are, this has no effect on you. And that's where miracles come in, actually, when you are not subject to that lower resonance anymore because you're on a completely different bandwidth. And I don't believe in religion per se, but I believe that many books have truth to it. And it says in the Bible that when the cities of lights are built, that those that come with dark thoughts can't even come near or nor live in them, meaning parasites cannot exist in the light. And this was tested in pyramids by somebody named, I think, Charles Bovis, who measured the light and the photons that the pyramid chamber would emit, and he got parasites, roaches, rodents, mosquitoes, and all the types of stuff that's parasitic, and put it in the center of the king's chamber, and they all died, or they try to run out of the light. So anything that is not of a divine nature in a high light structure cannot exist. That's actually physical fact. That's not magic. That's like ancient science.
Yeah. And I have to say one more thing about the parasites before we wrap this up. And if he gets to tell a story about when he was high, I'm going to tell you a story about when I took too many mushrooms. But it was honestly, it's turned in, that trip turned into the finale, the conclusion of my book, because I learned so much. It was actually one of the most profound experiences. And I started off in the hell realms, and I went all the way to source and everything in between, and I learned a lot. But the first place I went, and I don't know why, I found myself in an underground cavern system that looks like how we would depict hell. And there was the three-headed dog Cerberus guarding this like cavern, this like cave that was just pure darkness, and there was like a glowing orange light at the end of it. And the dog, approached the dog, and it seemed like he was like communicating. It was the three heads, were communicating with somebody, and he stepped aside and let me through, and I went in and I met Lucifer, and he looked like, he had red skin. He looked exactly how you would depict, how we would imagine him. And, these narcissists, they love to brag about how much of an asshole they are, They love to brag about their power. And he was like, he couldn't wait to like show me how they do it. And I don't know why, but he took me on an astral tour of the globe. And we started like astral traveling, and we flew over a town, and like he zoomed in, and I was able to see through everybody's skin, and everyone was infested with parasites, everyone. And he's like, and then zoomed closer, and he was like, "You see that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Those are parasites." And he said, "That's how the devil dances." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Come with me." And then we flew over DC, and he went to the politicians, and you couldn't even see a skeleton. They were just literally like walking parasites, and the parasites were controlling their minds, and that's who's running the world. And he said, "This is how we do it." And it was so profound in the moment, and I've been doing parasite cleanses ever since then, and it's changed my life. But I believe that was a real experience, and I believe that's exactly what's happening.
I believe that's true. I believe that what Einstein said, mankind's greatest foe is invisible. It's a microbe. It's not the Anunnakis, the Draconians, the Niburians, the Nephilim, blah, blah, blah. Because sometimes when people talk too much, I say, any of them Anunnakians paying your bill right now? No. It's just to ground them, because we get so out of ourselves. And I don't know if... and we also know the saying parasite means impairs the sight. So I totally believe that this is true, like through and through, that the elite families, whatever you want to call them, Rockefellers, Rothschild, these are all children of Marduk. If you want to go to Sumer, all Mardukian inheritance is all parasitic. There's nothing royal about that. That's all parasitic infestation. And that is why it doesn't work. It can't work.
And another thing I learned is that, we all know stargates are real. I mean, I don't know if we all know that, but I think we can collectively agree there's stargates on this planet. And it was explained that a person who's infested with parasites can't pass through a stargate, because they'll essentially spontaneously combust. The parasites will... The thing that makes a parasite is it never stops growing, right? So once it leaves this density, it starts to grow exponentially, and then you literally die. And this is how they keep their own from escaping. They don't want them to leave the people that really run the show. They got to make sure they have the planet locked down, and this is one way they do it, in my opinion. I think so.
Well, that's how you see vampires are parasites, actually. Even though they're interesting fantasy stories, but the myth behind that is that these vampires are so psychopathic, egotistical, that they can't see themselves. That's why they have no reflection in the mirror. They cannot see themselves. So these parasites that run the world have no reflection in regards to what they're doing. So hence, when the sunlight comes, they burst. They can't exist in the light and in the truth. It's impossible. And when we get telepathic, you can't lie anymore. the lie will, it'll be it's clear as day when somebody talks some crap. You'll literally see a dark cloud or some black ooze coming from the known as something not right. And kids know this, and animals know this when somebody carries bad juju, and then you feel it in the room and the energy tanks, and that this will be more evident, and then we know who you talk to, who to listen to more.
And that's why people gradually have learned not to trust the news. And I remember when that hit me, and that was in like 2014 or 15, I just looked and it was like the intuitive inside me is registering all of what they're saying as non-truth. I found it very interesting, and I just thought, well, it's something that you're aware of, but you could never talk about. So the spell is wearing off. So as we become more intuitive and we can safeguard or do what we can for our physical being, but as we also raise awareness, the great thing that happens is that we begin to learn or check in with our body or check in with the information, even the vastness of what we've covered tonight through discussion, and I hope you all enjoyed this. We really enjoyed having you, and in the studio audience, and in the virtual audience as well, that you got something out of this that helps. Pick and choose what you resonate with. And it's very interesting how we can hear information from someone who doesn't have, a framed something, and we can resonate with it at the truth. And someone who has one of those framed diplomas, they tell us something and it doesn't sound like the truth anymore. We're really switching into where we can tune into our wisdom from within and share it. It doesn't need to have credentials behind it. So I want to say thank you for coming in and sharing your knowledge with people. Thank you, Dominica, for coming in. We're going to do this next week. Thank you, Tyler, for co-hosting with me and bringing some questions. I told Raw that he was going to be bad cop and I would be good cop with the questions.
Psychedelic cop.
Well, now we know why. But thank you for joining us. And we're going to do another one of these shows, Cosmic Gate, soon. Keep in touch. And then Humankind Project online. And if you're visiting Sedona, let us know. We'd love to work with you, meet you, create community. And thank you all.